since he is having issues right now, would later this week, maybe Wednesday, work better for you? Because that would be fine with me if
Harding.
you wanted to.
Harding, we're live, buddy.
Okay.
Hey guys, what's up, y'all? Welcome to Chain Reaction. It's been a while since I've done all this stuff, and I'm doing it a little bit differently because I'm still without the former backup phone I used to use to do the music and whatnot. We're getting our stuff together. Rather forgetful. We were going to have the Free Market Farmer on. That's his Twitter handle, to talk a little bit about farming, and I believe he does specifically. He farms food for high-end restaurants, if I remember correctly, which is pretty tight. But it looks like he may or may not come on, so we're not quite sure what's up with that. We might just be shooting this shit together, or we'll be interviewing him. So just so you know, there will be some sort of interruption in the middle of our show, and we'll figure out audio levels and stuff. Harding, good to talk to you again, dude. How's it going?
Very good. I've been drinking vegetables lately, so my spirits are kind of lifted, and I've been having less caffeine as a result.
Yeah, that's good. There's a lot about, dietary stuff where the science disagrees, and there's so many different things about high fat, low fat, eggs, butter, artificial stuff, and there's tons of disagreement amongst doctors and even nutritionists and various studies. But one thing that remains very consistent over the last few decades, it's that eating vegetables is good for you. That's about the number one thing that you can recommend to anyone who is wanting to make improvements in their diet. Just eat more vegetables than you are now. That's a huge step in the right direction. I know it felt like when I was 18 to 23 that my body functioned just fine on utter crap. But then as I age, it's like, oh, that shit's bad for you. And I begin to appreciate things like salad because I feel good after I eat it. What do you is that like a homemade kale shake or something like that?
This one is raisins, oats, baby arugula, and baby arugula, some red lettuce, and some what would that be? There's some. I put in some sugar, and then I also there's some. I think there might be kale. I'm not sure. I put in this leaf blend, and I'm not sure what was in that right now.
Yep.
But
arugula is good.
It's a lot of high vitamin K stuff. So my blood's going to be pretty thick right now.
Nice. Also, in case listeners heard, one thing I started doing that really pisses my wife off is I boo carbs. So he talks about sugar or flour or anything like that. I just say boo, or try to get a negative association with it. I figure it's helpful for Ephraim, although kids need more carbs than adults for sure. So anything new you want to talk about? I mean, I got a bunch of shit in my life. I sort of shared some stuff, I think, on the last podcast I threw out there, but anything new you want to discuss?
Well, there's a strong possibility that I'll be headed east temporarily in about a month and a half, and during that month and a half, during that week and like a month and a half, I probably won't be able to record. But what I will be doing is I'll be taking a vlog from where I'm staying, and I'll be trying to keep my people updated. Also, I have a shirt coming out that says cops are the only bums who can pull you over to panhandle, and that'll be out soon. I wanted to put it out before this recording, but I had a bunch of shit I needed to take care of, so that didn't happen. But yeah, that's just my personal stuff.
Cool. Where out east? I know you're on the West Coast, so everywhere is east.
Well, except Hawaii and Alaska.
If you go east far enough.
Yeah. I'll be staying in New Jersey and visiting New York probably, and among probably a few other things that I'll be doing. I'm not sure exactly what that'll entail, but I've got some people out there I'm going to visit and possibly form some professional arrangements with, and then move out there sooner than I expected. So I'm looking forward to that.
You already have a bunch of people out there, you know?
Yeah, I know people pretty much everywhere. I think I don't know that I know anybody in China or South Africa. No, actually, I know 2 people in South Africa. Yeah. Okay. So, but it's weird. I know too many people, but these people.
Well, that's what happens when you're an internet superstar. Stuff. What's that? I interrupted you. I didn't hear you.
Oh, just possibly professional stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, like
cool.
when you network as a hobby and a part for the course, like if you do that every day, you'll get to know way more people than the human brain is supposed to like naturally supposed to handle. So
that's part of the reason you're insane, or do you attribute that to it?
It's probably at the top layers, yeah.
Okay,
okay. Maybe an inch or 2.
Gotcha. Yeah, things have been pretty cool around here. Brother and his wife had a kid last Sunday, which was awesome. Good to meet him. My another cousin from my kid. I don't know. It's just a really cool process, and I'm one of those people that always thinks it's kind of stupid when people talk about not being able to understand something until you experience it. And I still largely think that, but what's true about me is that I didn't quite get how cool like the labor and birth process and baby stuff is until I actually experienced it for myself. That doesn't mean other people don't, but I thought I had a pretty good idea, and it's just way cooler now. Like it's fascinating. Just another human life, human brain, individual, free thinking person.
There's something about that. First off, there is that element of it where they're more of a blank slate than other beings, and that's just cool to be around. But there's also the fact, and I've sort of looked into this. There are certain hormones and pheromones that emit and are received better around an adult and a baby, and those basically are designed to get you to be more caring toward an infant or a child. And mothers get the most of them because it's like real copacetic with like progesterone and estrogen. But men have progesterone and estrogen too, and they also have a bunch of these sympathetic chemicals. They just have a different thing that happens when that enters their bodies. So really,
it's a lot less directly than the mother as well, who actually goes through tons of physical changes.
Yeah, so like I would say that it's something that you absolutely have to experience because like your body needs to get used to being around small humans. So
yeah, I don't know. I tend to think that like an empathetic conversation with someone, you can get a pretty good feel for what something's like, even if you never experience it. Not all the time, but I don't know. I think some people get it better than others. Especially a lot of women. They seem to I categorize them like that. I've met a lot of women that haven't had a kid and want to have a kid and go through like the pregnancy process greatly because they seem to have a much better understanding than I did, just how amazing it is, even when they haven't really been around it or been through it themselves. Yeah. Anyway, there's that. That was cool. Bachelor party 3 weekends ago, and I wasn't here. That was a lot of fun. I love camping and hanging around a fire with dudes. I'm like hanging out with women doing it too, but a lot of time there ends up being some inter-male competition for the women in the group that can kind of ruin the environment. It's probably true if there are some gay dudes there too, but it changes the nature of the conversations and stuff. But talking with a bunch of dudes over the course of a weekend, with some of them being overly well lubricated, is really a funny and just like pure fun sort of scenario for me. So that's cool. And then I ran the Tough Mudder the weekend cool. Before last, and that felt good. Furthest I've ever jogged in my life, plus obstacles. I almost passed out, but I didn't, so it's all good. Don't feel as old as I did 3 months ago. Got me outdoors running a little bit, which helps me sleep better, so I'm feeling good about some of that sort of personal stuff. Been a fun summer, but damn, dude, summers are a bad time to record podcasts on weekends, especially in like the Midwest area. I don't know what it's like where it's nice weather almost all year round, or it's not for you, it gets too hot. But around here it's like we need to get in all. What's that?
Because I live in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, you live in the desert, but where it's hot all the time. And in this region, it's like we need to get in all of our camping, all of our outdoor activities in this 3-month period of time, because winter is coming. And we will, the only outdoor activity we'll be doing in the winter is shoveling. Some people snowmobile, ski and stuff, but that's a lot more takes a lot more effort, I would say, than hanging out outdoors in the summer.
Did you shoot any guns while you went camping?
Didn't, no. We went to it was a really sweet place. Well, guys, now we're just talking about my life and things I do. I guess that's okay once in a while. It was a campground on like a giant, not a giant, fairly large mountain. But what this place used to be was an iron mine. So there's this area in northern Minnesota near Brainerd. Some people will know where that is. Suburban people from the Minneapolis-St. Paul area know where that is. So it used to be a mine, and they just dug and kind of terraced downward and dig deeper until, basically there's nothing left to mine. And then they filled it with water and fish and stuff. So there's a bunch of decent sized lakes in this area, not that huge, but pretty decent size, that are hundreds of feet deep because the mines were so deep. And then all of the dirt and whatnot, they just piled in a giant hill. And on this hill, there was a campground, and we were about 3/4 of a mile away from a bunch of mountain biking trails. So part of the bachelor party was hanging out at a campground, and part of it we did some mountain biking, and I did some trail running as well. But it was really cool. I'd never really thought like what happens to a mine after it's no longer in use. Well, this one in particular turned into just this amazingly beautiful, hilly, wooded area where tons of people go every single day in the summer to hang out and have fun and enjoy nature. It's kind of crazy just how quickly the earth recovers, and just how little destruction of the land the mining actually did. And even calling the mine when it's there destruction of land is kind of a poor way to phrase it, but it definitely a mine to me definitely looks a lot uglier than what I experienced this weekend. It's just amazing what it can turn into.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like one of those Morgan Freeman documentaries documentaries where like you find out what the Earth would be like without humans, and you sort of see what that is. Because like out here, the only difference between your experience and mine with mining, mines in general, is that we don't have a wooded, hilly area. We have, fucking sand and sharp rocks and shit. But, the same thing applies because there are a huge amount of filled-in mines around here, and basically bushes have grown over them. And, big networks of cacti and other associated plants. And it's kind of interesting because, we're bringing on a farmer shortly, but it disturbs the soil. And you need to disturb soil to get proper nutrients in plants. And so, in some ways, there's a possibility that these areas are better for plants than they otherwise would be, especially since a lot of the minerals that would be in the dirt, deep in the earth, are pulled up. So it's sort of like that. And then, if you have a fire in the region, it burns the undergrowth and causes a bunch of char earth. So a lot of these places will reforest and look like pretty amazing once humans are out of this off of this planet, or just destroy each other in big nuclear apocalypse.
Yeah, or they use all of one resource in an area, then it just turns into a new resource for humans.
Yeah,
human ingenuity, pretty amazing. Yeah, around here, I don't really know how much disturbing the soil makes a difference, because it's the area used to be a giant glacier here, so there's tons of water, and then you basically have to try to prevent things from growing. Getting them to grow is not the problem. Just growing the wrong things is the issue. Well,
yeah, lots of fast-growing weeds and invasive species.
Yeah, growing the right things. And there also is a bunch of corn farmers, because of ethanol subsidies in the area, that really work the soil hard to get it to grow one crop season after season after season. But for the most part, things just grow. So politics, anarchy, philosophy, economics. Anything you want to talk about in that area?
Well, I went on this talk show on KLRN and discussed anarchy from.
Did you just call in?
Well, yeah, he wanted to discuss it because I got into an argument with him and his co-host on Twitter, and so he wanted me to call in and better represent anarchy than some of the ways it had been represented. And so essentially what happened was I went on the show and it went pretty well, and the show is up on YouTube now, but that sort of thing, I think, is something that people should do much more often. They should reach out and get into civil conversations with people, because I had a very productive conversation with him, and one of the key things that we discussed was that anarchy is not lawlessness and general disorder and chaos, and that anarchists who care about anarchy won't see it turn into that, because people only advocate a state at all because they want stability. And you can't advocate stability and also society and also anything else positive if the image that anarchists have is just people who lob Molotovs into Starbucks. So it's while violence may be a thing in the future, as a part of anarchist pursuits, stating the fact that it's basically an ideology of freedom and peace.
All right, we're getting a call. I'm going to interrupt you. Yeah. Thanks for. I'm going to interrupt you, guys. Figuring out the audio levels for this might be pretty complicated. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, I'm trying to set up the audio levels a little bit. Can you talk for a sec? Oh, perfect. Hey, Harding, you want to talk?
Yeah, I can't hear him though, so I'm gonna open up
we're
YouTube
good.
and see about that.
All right. Hey, I don't know your name. I just know you as Free Market Farmer on Twitter. Would you?
Most people call me Josh. So
Okay. That is what I will call you. It comes off the tongue a little easier than Free Market Farmer.
yeah, I'm sure it does.
I'm Jeremiah Mitchell, and Jeremiah Harding is talking to you via Skype. Harding, can you hear him now?
Cool.
Yeah, I can hear him now.
Okay, good. Could you hear Jeremiah Harding, Josh?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
I just heard him.
Okay. Yeah, I'm bad at audio, and phone calls via Skype, broadcast live to the internet, not my forte. So
Yeah, first time for me, guys. So.
yeah, it's like my third time, but I still suck at it. Now, Josh, could you tell us just a little bit about what you do, who you are, what your life's like?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If that's too general, let me know.
I don't know. We can go over
All
a
right.
brief, kind of a brief overview real quick. I am a commercial market gardener. So I use a biointensive process basically to grow on a small land base really large quantities of food. I guess if you really want to sum it up. I have 2 kids. I got 2 on the way in the next 2 weeks, twins.
Congratulations.
Worked in engineering for a number of years. Environmental was my background. I laid pipe for a living, unintended. I did water and wastewater plant design and infrastructure design.
Okay, so
I still do that a little bit on the side.
Okay, cool.
That's
Whereabouts are you at?
Central Florida, so I'm north of Orlando by about 40 miles.
Okay, not that. Okay, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Not that densely populated of an area, right?
In my area, no. You have medium density residential.
Okay.
Low density residential towards the east until you get over the Halifax River, which is about 10 miles from me. Then it goes back to high density residential because that's all beachfront. That's all oceanfront property.
Yeah, I'm asking. I'm wondering why the growing a large amount in a small area. Why farm that way?
Honestly, it's a sustainability, really.
Okay.
And it's a profitability. So if you look at
interesting.
my model versus, well, it's not mine. I can't take credit for it. There's other people that started perfecting this long before I got into it. The model that I utilize versus, say, conventional farming. So you picture, like Iowa or something where they grow commodity crops. These guys are using thousands of acres of land base to produce, hundreds of tons of corn, for instance.
Right.
Only about 20% of that's going to go to eating every year. The rest of it's going to go to cattle and ethanol production.
That's right. We were actually just talking very briefly about corn and ethanol production.
Yeah,
before we
it's
called it.
atrocious. But
yeah, I live in Wisconsin, so it's all over here.
Oh yeah. You're big dairy lobbyists, corn, all kinds of stuff up there. Yeah.
Yep.
For me, it's a multi-cell, right? I can take, just like as a general rule for this process, you can do about 50,000 per half acre, give or take. That'll be your gross profit using a biointensive spin type process, which would be small plot intensive farming. And what you get out of that at the end of the day is a return. From my standpoint, why I got into it is a return to the family farm, right? You used to be able to farm, a small 10, 15, 20 acre area and support a family. That was awesome. You get a really good quality of life a lot of time with your kids. Your kids learn something meaningful that's tactile, hands-on. It provides for the community. It provides for the greater good. It also provides profitably. I mean, there's multiple positives to it. Today, however, with, big ag, lobbying, government subsidies,
Oh, yeah.
all of that, it is incredibly difficult for small time guys to get in without having, if you're not born into a trust fund or you're not born into 2,000 acres of land to grow iceberg lettuce or something.
Yep.
So to that end, that's really where this model appealed to me, was that, hey, I could take an acre and a half, and by their measure, by their parameters, I could make $150,000 a year gross, which means 50 to 60% profit margin. I'm bringing home, $85,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And of course, that's as a generalization. You can do better than that. You can do worse than that. It all really comes down to how much you put into it and how creative you really get with it. So if you go into co-planting, like depending on if you really time out and you really pay attention to how your plants are growing,
yeah,
and you time out how long it takes for something to reach maturity, you can stagger plant things in the same small space so that, once you harvest, crop A out, crop B is only a week out before maturity, and C and D and so on and so forth. So you can utilize the same small tract to pump out, multiple crops.
Okay.
You can also do high rotation planting, which would be stuff that matures in like 21 days or less, where if I harvest out on Monday night, it's replanted. It's already going again to be harvested in 21 days.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that usually triggers the environmentalists. They say you're turning it over too quickly.
Well,
how's that sustainable?
Do you do any hydroponics or aquaponics?
I do not. No. Not because I don't think it's cool. It's awesome. Hydroponics is a really awesome concept, and I actually compete with a guy that grows lettuce hydroponically. My hitch with hydroponics, philosophically, is the barrier to entry. It is so cost prohibitive for someone to get into hydroponics at a large enough scale for that to be their only occupation. It's kind of crazy. And then the scaling factor of hydroponics to reach, for me, I'm growing 1.75 acres currently. I turn just short of $200,000 a year. Last year I did a little bit better than $200,000.
Wow.
For me to do the equivalent in a hydroponic setup, I mean, you're looking at, I wouldn't even pay that back with that kind of income for probably 2 or 3 years. So I would be operating, basically paying off my setup.
Yep.
Right. I would pay off my setup right as time came around for like pump replacements and stuff like that. I mean, I would be reinvesting into that setup again going forward. And then, you factor in the whole issue of like power supply, and, that's a whole other sustainability thing, and how you're going to operate this without external inputs. It's a really awesome method, and I think it's a method that has its market, and it should be more heavily utilized. Probably in the Southwest is where I would peg that for peak sustainability application, where water is short. For me, I live in the tropics, subtropics actually, so I get 24 inches of rain a year. It's hot as hell all year. 100% humidity almost all year. It never freezes. If I wanted to, I could have a 12-month growing season for stuff here. So for my area is not the most, in my opinion, the most effective model for me. For other people, I don't know. If you're near salt water or something like that, it may work more effectively.
What is the capital investment, the initial investment per acre relative to some of these 1,000-acre farms? Do you have any, it seems like it'd be really high, but
if you're at that scale, if you're looking like a commodity cropper, like somebody doing soy and corn,
yeah,
you're looking at an operation there of, kind of an unimaginable scale, really. People picture, what an Iowa corn farm looks like. But the machinery necessary to semi-effectively harvest all of that, the pesticide inputs, the herbicide inputs, the fertilizer inputs, you're looking at a scale of millions. Easy. the seed alone, I mean, if you want to look at like Roundup Ready corn, per bag, I think one bag is planting a half acre. I could be wrong. I haven't looked that up in a long time. Like one bag maybe planting a half acre. I think the last time I looked at it was like $180 a bag.
Wow.
Yeah, so you scale that out and don't even factor in, bulk discounts. And it's like, holy smokes, your seed cost is astronomical. And then you figure, you would need a fully mechanized operation. So that's elevators, conveyors, staff of at least, probably 50 to 100 people to go out, airplanes or helicopters to spray, efficiently at that level. Because you break it down hourly employee versus aerial application. I mean, yeah, you're way out there. Whereas for me, if they were like, Josh, look, dude, I really want to get set up in my backyard. You could set up a commercial operation on a quarter acre for a couple $1,000, $3,000 to $5,000.
Okay.
And I mean, someone that really outlines more of that, and I'm a little beyond that scale. So at that scale, like the half acre and below, the guy that is really, really amazing with all of that his name is Curtis Stone.
Okay.
He's in Canada. So, a lot of his planting schedules and stuff like that are really catered for the northern climates, obviously. But if anybody was interested in, southern climate planting, I'm available for that. So is Ray Tyler, who owns Rose Creek Farms in Selmer, Tennessee.
So are any of these people on Twitter as well?
I know Rose Creek Farms is on Twitter, I think. I know for a fact that Curtis Stone he owns Green City Acres, so he'll probably be under the Urban Farmer or Green City Acres.
Gotcha.
So what?
Because that's a good accessible way for people to get information about this sort of thing.
How?
Yeah, I'm doing like free advertising for the guy. I don't think I've never met him, so.
How do you keep the land or get the land to be that efficient? It just is, and you just plant the right things.
So it's a system analysis. Really, what it shakes out to is going to be time and mistakes ultimately for each individual. But with people like Jean-Martin Fortier, who owns several really successful operations also based in Canada and Curtis Stone, they outline a lot of the mistakes that you can make to guide you. But per your climate, obviously your planting dates will vary a little bit. And really from Curtis's end of that whole deal and so I do a hybrid between the two. Jean-Martin owns like a full diversified mixed vegetable operation. And Curtis focuses really strictly on like very small land base, very high turnover crops.
Okay.
So I kind of do an in-between of the two that works for me in my market down here.
Cool.
You use a standard bed system, 30 inches wide to fit all of your tools, your seeders, and everything like that. And you're basically going to, maximize your planting density to help you with weed control. And then you're going to look at days to maturity for your crops. And you don't want any storage crops with the exception of maybe if you have a market for summer squash or winter squash, and then tomatoes. So everything else would be 60 days or less is what I use.
Huh. So it's an interesting concept. Just the idea of the small farmer making a bit of a comeback is somewhat encouraging, which makes sense. Even just with the dietary changes that are occurring with large quantities of people, where they're moving a little bit away from more of the processed stuff and the grains, your corn, soys and everything. Makes sense that there's more of a demand for fresher, more nutrient dense kinds of foods.
Oh, most definitely. And you see the movement has really emerged on the coast, and it's working its way in.
Yeah.
And, down here, like Florida produces, I think the last time I saw the stat, it was like 19% of the U.S.'s produce. So it's not like I'm in an unsaturated market. It doesn't really get more saturated with the exception of California. The difference being is, my selling points would be my selling points are. I use better than organic practices, and it's hyper local. So I sell only within a 50-mile radius to 60-mile radius of my farm. So I hit fine dining is kind of my niche, really. So nice. I grow stuff that I can pay more attention to.
Yeah.
That is for a niche crowd that is spending more for fresher, less common ingredients.
Yeah, that's what I kind of figured, because a lot of these restaurants, they like their fish fresh caught and their meat fresh off the animal, not stored at all for any length of time except the time it takes to get to the restaurant. And then their holding places are like fast turnaround time so that they don't have any damage to their products. Because I was going to go into exactly a restaurant work for a long time. I was considering opening up a gourmet sandwich shop. But so I know a lot about that sort of stuff, and like I kind of figured and also hoped that that's what you did, because honestly, if we're ever going to decentralize, we need to get off these multinational chains that don't really respect the quality of the product.
Oh, absolutely, and people look at me. So I do a farmers market as well. I go to a farmers market, an artisan farmers market. But for the most part, almost everything, over 80% of my business comes from direct sales to restaurants. I'm experimenting with CSAs going into next year possibly, but everything goes to restaurants. And as you said, high turnaround and storage, everything that I deliver was harvested within 24 hours. So my lettuce is cut the day of. Yeah, my lettuce is cut the day of. Carrots, radishes, beets, cherry tomatoes, you name it, herbs, they're cut, 15, 20 minutes before the order is processed, and we got a driver heading out. That's the last thing to go on the truck. So you're getting it, transit times maybe an hour to the extent of our area here to like North Ormond.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's an efficient operation.
Yeah. So you're getting it, right off of the farm. It is for sure farm to table. And that's a huge selling point. And everybody that buys from me, so this always parlays kind of into the question or the interrogation as to why I don't license organic, because I don't certify organic either. It's cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
For me at my scale.
Yeah.
And for two, it's silly. I don't need the state to tell me how to grow. For one, you should use best practices for sure. By far and away. If you're doing something that is related to public health in any way, shape, or form, you should use best practices, whether it's economical or not. And me and people like me that do this are proof that it is not just economical, it's incredibly profitable to do so. And every chef that wants to buy from me, hey, you need to come out and do a tour of the farm first. I don't sell blindly. Bring your kids, bring your wife, bring your cooks, whatever. Come out, check the facility, take a walk around, see what we do.
That's awesome. I appreciate the pride so many farmers put into their work relative to a bunch of other occupations. I think that kind of comes through the way you talk about it. I know a lot of farmers around here that, or a couple I've talked to, I don't know a lot, but that used to sell organic, but they just can't keep up because the regulations for what's organic change every year, and they just can't afford to keep changing the way that they do things, their operation, in order to remain organically or organic certified. They still sell products.
And really,
don't care.
Yeah, if you look at what you're going to make by putting so for me, it's a big proponent of why I refuse to do it is the heirloom loophole, right? Whether you two are familiar with that or not. Nope. It is, the organic stipulation in the state of Florida states that if I'm going to certify organic, the point of origin has to be organic, so it has to be an organic seed. If I'm buying seed that was generated from a non-organic plant, but it is not genetically modified, so it's a normal plant, but it was not grown as an organic plant, I plant that non-organic seed and I grow it with a regimen that is better than organic. Is the end product not essentially an organic, let's just say a head of lettuce? It would be.
Right.
the entirety of its life, everything it was exposed to. You know, I use compost as fertilizer. I don't use unnatural fertilizers. I use, compost to turkey litter. That's pretty much it. If I do need to use a pesticide, it is kale and clay is the only thing that's utilized on my farm. I don't use safe soap or anything like that. Kale and we really have beetle issues down here. That's kind of the big thing. We don't have a lot of moths and other issues in my microclimate. So I'm fortunate in that I don't have to use a lot of stuff, but kale and clay is a foliar application. It turns white like a powder. And then, it irritates the bugs, the beetles rather, between their plates of armor. So, they choose other plants, not those to eat. And then it washes right off before you sell it.
And it's interesting that you bring up the organics thing, because that's been a thorn in my mental side for a really long time now, is the bullshit organic industry, which, a lot of it all of it's organic by the scientific definition, so it's just a label anyway, but like the label applies to plants that are sometimes not strictly organic by the term the hippies want to use, and a lot of it, if it is like certified organic, and if it does qualify as organic, a lot of the pesticides that they have to use, because they also have to be organic pesticides, are worse for people. And I've seen I saw a report a while back. I saw a report a while back where people were getting cancer from these organic pesticides, but at least it's organic, right?
Well, that's where you get in. That's from a chemistry standpoint, that's where you get into the whole. It's a whole separate can of worms as far as like an isolate or extract versus a whole ingredient. So if you're telling me, this pesticide, I had a guy actually was trying to pitch me a couple weeks ago on this pesticide, this foliar application that, it's going to save everything, right? And it's, like orange peel, grapefruit peel, lemon peel extracts make this up. And I'm like, well, what extract specifically? And he starts pitching these compounds out. And I'm like, all right, so those lab generated, those naturally derived. Oh, well, they're found in the natural fruit. Okay, so You're not answering the question. Like, was it made in the lab? Like, so you broke down what is in an orange peel, and you just simply recreated this compound in a laboratory, or was it found in an orange, like you're harvesting oranges to get this enzyme? Oh, I think we make it in the lab. Okay, so you can take an extract. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's bullshit, dude. You can take an extract from literally anything, grapeseed extract, right? Mm-hmm. Standalone, we know that it causes a higher level of pure nitrogen in the bloodstream. Taken too much as a vasodilator, cause your blood pressure to drop out, you can pass out. Okay, so that's awesome. What checks that from someone that eats too many grapes with grape seeds? There's enzymes present that counteract that to control it. Nature, believe it or not, I mean, this is a shock to so many people today, actually knows what it's doing. Whether it's conscious or not, I don't know. That's a separate can of worms and another podcast. But, that there are checks and balances in everything that is natural. So when you start breaking extracts out and you go, well, this shit will kill cancer. Well, that's awesome, but it could also cause it. So why would I want to spray it all over my produce? It's a general rule. I mean, if it says extract on it, I'm not into it for my plants. I mean, that's kind of what I've come up with after all this time. Just because it says organic on it does not mean I shouldn't wear a Tyvek suit and a respirator to apply it.
Right.
I mean, there are a number of cases to be made that, everything that's used in off mosquito repellent is organic. It originates from chrysanthemum flowers. Do I want to consume off bug spray? Probably not.
Yeah, there's a perception.
I think
there's a perception that like if something's like made more using chemicals that are more disconnected from nature, that somehow it's worse than things that are more directly derived from nature, where there's a lot of things that are poisonous in our world that will kill you, especially if you disconnect them, like you're saying, isolate them from the rest of the ingredient, whatever that is.
Oh, absolutely.
Or if it's a derivative.
Yeah.
Define derivative. Like,
Well,
that
like,
could go to
okay, so
extract or
like taurine, for
concentrate
instance, is a derivative of a natural compound. But it's it's a synthetic derivative, so that they don't have to say that this is like a derivative form of basically bull sperm. They can say it's taurine.
Okay.
No. All right. Josh, I'm wondering.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna take you down a different path just for a minute or two, if that's all right.
Yeah.
You are a voluntarist, libertarian, anarchist. I don't know what you call yourself, correct?
Yeah, I guess we can go all of the above, because in some ways I think we're all kind of floating around that same triad or myriad of different areas there.
Yeah, I try to throw out multiple terms. You know, there's so many commies running around these days, breaking private property and damaging people's stuff, calling themselves anarchists. Like, I'm a little bit more hesitant than I was a few years ago to throw that word around, but so I know I understand people like using a lot of different terms. How long have you been an anarchist?
Oh, let's see. So I've always had a problem with authority, I guess. There's that.
What authority?
Really?
Right?
Yeah, authority in general, kind of all of it, has been an issue for me. But I guess I really kind of started embracing it. We're going back like maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that.
Nice.
And it didn't. So that was kind of the seed. That's when it started.
Yeah.
Where I was like, wow, this is stupid. Seatbelt laws. You know what I mean? See, that's stupid. So that started kind of rubbing me wrong. And then I was like, helmets on motorcycles. You want to kill yourself? Go for it. And then it rapidly devolved. From there, the more I got engaged with politics, the more I was like, wow, this is absolutely abhorrent. Like, why, this person, X person, whoever it is running for president or Congress or Senate or, mayor or whatever, they don't even know who I am. Like, how they don't pay my bills. They don't know if my kid has health issues. They don't know what's really in my best interest. They're going to get up there and they're going to bullshit as hard as they can and hope that I show up on, November 15th or whatever it is to vote for them so they can get some cush job and go to the country club, whatever.
Yeah, and pretend like they're serving the world.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just representing you. This is like some noble profession.
Okay, guys, I got a chef calling me.
Sounds good. Yeah. Josh, thanks for talking to us. We'll plug your Twitter and put it in this podcast episode description. Have a good one.
Yeah, definitely. All right, man. Thanks so much, guys.
Peace.
Be well. Yeah, we should talk to him again so that we can get the perspective on the stuff you wanted to discuss on another podcast. He's pretty well informed, so maybe like a month or two.
Yeah, I'm open to that. He seems like a guy, just given his various jobs and what he's doing now, that values his independence quite a bit. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to work for yourself.
If we're ever going to get out of this mess.
It's what?
It's requisite if we're ever going to get out of this mess.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of small scale farms being profitable. It's pretty awesome. I don't know. It's one of those things. I don't know how sustainable that would be, or like, would there be only small farms in a free market? Probably not. There's probably still, always going to be a place for this mass commodity farming. It's one of those industries like all the ones we talk about. I don't know if it's top 5, but it's so highly regulated by the state that it drives out these small farmers, drives them out of business, and allows for the super wealthy giant farmers to take over and run things, because the state creates so many barriers to entry and makes profitability such a difficult thing for all sorts of reasons, that it just becomes unsustainable, like he was saying, for these smaller farmers. I'm glad there's ways of doing it. I hope more people do it and enjoy it. I like having good food, especially vegetables and stuff. Yeah, I'm glad
Yeah,
Josh joined
and
us.
of course, the more decentralized all of this is, the more it's, farm to restaurant or farm to store, things like that. The more it gets to that stage, the faster decentralization can happen, because part of decentralization, effective decentralization, is localization. Jacob Bowen wrote an article for Time to Free Us about that, and the idea of decentralization has inherently in it localization. If you don't bring your needs closer to home, the temptation to trust people you've never met to handle things you have no idea about, and the temptation to gloss over all of the ethical issues and trappings associated with those possible dealings, is very, very strong. And I think that part of the reason everything is so fucked up is because people have divorced the idea of looking into where their stuff comes from and having it come from somewhere that doesn't require hiring thugs and murderers to do it for you. That they don't want to think about it, and they'd rather be blind because they've been blind their whole life. So why start opening my eyes now? It's gonna fucking hurt.
Yeah, there's so much. People don't, because why? You just trust the government. You just trust that it's fine because they said it's fine. They say it's okay. And there's, in terms of a localization of farming, I mean, there's these government subsidies of transportation really often make profitable the mass movement of goods that wouldn't otherwise be profitable, where getting food from 10,000 miles away is cheaper than getting food close to home. And some of that is due to taxpayer subsidies for various forms of transportation, even things like the Navy protecting shipping lines. I mean, that's a cost that should be borne by the company shipping, but is instead borne by the taxpayer. All right, I got to get out of here pretty quick. Next week, I think listeners might be interested in hearing this. I thought we could talk about two things that I recalled that we disagreed on that might be an interesting conversation. One is how sweatshops help the poor. I don't know if we disagree enough on that, but that might be an interesting topic. Or I think you mentioned having concerns about overpopulation, and maybe this isn't a disagreement conversation either, but we could talk about how the natural market forces will prevent overpopulation, or tend to.
I have things to say on both of those subjects. I don't know that I necessarily generally disagree with you, but there are probably some interesting discrepancies that we can discuss. I'd be more than happy to next week. Okay. And I'll also try and keep getting guests on, because I think that helps keep the conversation going, and it also helps keep the subjects less insular to the kinds of things that we would talk about.
I'm cool with that. I like talking to people even about things like what crops are grown and how long the times are to ship them to the restaurants, just because weird details like that are interesting to me. If you want to follow the Free Market Farmer and get in touch with him, you can. He's on Twitter at Free Market Farmer, and it's FREEMRKT Farmer. And I'll have it in the show notes page in the description, but just in case you're listening via audio and happen to want to type that in quick, he looks like he's mostly anarchist stuff, which is cool. I obviously had no idea who he was other than what his Twitter username was, and I saw like 2 sentences of what he said. But interesting conversation. Harding, you want to plug anything?
Moment of Rage, you can Google that too. Listen to Chain Reaction every Sunday. I'll keep you all updated to my personal shit by Insanity is Free on Twitter and everywhere else. And Smash the State.
All right. you can follow the show's Twitter feed at Chain Reaction, and the T is a 1, or you can follow me personally at Jeremiah JM. Thanks for joining us, y'all, whoever is still listening despite our hiatus. We'll get back to regular recording from now on, except for maybe we can probably find a different day or double record at some point when you go away. I think my life will be manageable enough in a month. All right. Anyway, y'all, hope you have a good week. Peace.